Have you ever caught yourself defending someone accused of something horrific, not because you agree with them, but because you saw a piece of yourself in them?
Hi, I'm Dr. Jaime Vona, and in this video, we're diving into the psychology of identity projection, a fascinating and often uncomfortable phenomenon where we unconsciously project our own pain onto people the world has labeled monstrous.
Today, we're using the case of Bryan Kohberger to explore how identity, trauma, and social media shape our reactions to crime, and sometimes distort our sense of justice. In psychology, projection is a defense mechanism where we attribute our own feelings or traits onto others, usually the ones we are not fully aware of or have not processed. Identity projection goes a step further. It is when we see ourselves in someone else's story, especially someone who shares our pain, our alienation, our outsider status. It's not about approving their actions, it's about unconsciously aligning with their struggles. We may say things like, "He was bullied too. No one saw his pain. He was socially awkward like me." Even if someone is accused of something horrific, if we recognize part of our own wounded identity in them, we may feel sympathy, or even defend them without realizing why. When the Kohberger case broke, the public's initial reaction was shock, anger, and grief for the victims, which is absolutely justified. But then came the wave of something else, fascination, and even empathy, not with what he allegedly did, but with who he was. People dug into his past, bullied, isolated, a late bloomer who struggled socially. He was described as awkward, intellectual, different. And suddenly, some viewers online started to say, "I was like that too. I know what it feels like to be invisible. I just wanted people to see me." This is the emotional trapdoor of identity projection. What starts as curiosity becomes connection. And that connection, if unchecked, can cloud moral clarity. So why do we do this? From a psychodynamic perspective, projection allows us to deal with unresolved parts of the self, especially the parts connected to shame, rejection, or loneliness. In Kohberger's case, people didn't relate to murder. They related to marginalization. It's also deeply tied to self-authorship, or the story we tell ourselves about who we are, how we relate to others, and how we acquire that knowledge. When someone else's story mirrors our own pain, we fill in emotional gaps and become more forgiving of their darker behaviors. This is especially potent in online spaces, where algorithms feed us emotional resonance over logic. The more familiar Kohberger's face became, the more people felt like they knew him. That's the danger. When projection takes over, empathy becomes selective, and justice becomes biased. I've felt this instinct myself. Not in the Bryan Kohberger case, but toward people who, like me, were underestimated, written off, misunderstood. As someone who grew up fighting for visibility and later advocating for my daughter's complex medical needs, I get the feeling of being the outsider. So when I see someone portrayed as strange or isolated, I flinch. Not because I excuse their actions, but because that part of my identity remembers the pain of being overlooked. That's why identity projection is so tricky. It doesn't come from malice. It comes from unhealed memory. So ask yourself, do I support this person? Or do I see myself in their story? Am I reacting to them or to me? Bryan Kohberger's story, whatever the courts decide, is not just about crime. It's about how identity, pain, and perception blur our ability to see things clearly. Be aware of the stories you resonate with, because sometimes the most dangerous narratives are the ones we've lived ourselves.
This spoke to you. Subscribe for more true crime psychology breakdowns, and tell me in the comments, have you ever seen yourself in someone the world condemned? Until next time, I'm Dr. Jaime Vona. Keep questioning, keep growing, and don't be afraid to meet your shadow.